My lords, I've given you my respect. I've finished my tea. I have something else to do, so I won't stay here any longer. Goodbye. Seeing that they didn't say anything, Chen Xavier didn't say anything more. After clasping his fists, he stood up and left. When the door of the private room opened, General Lewis's face darkened, and he was about to draw his sword. But before he could make the next move, the city guard's hand had already been pressed on his arm, and he shook his head at the same time. Chen Xavier, who noticed something unusual, paused at the door, and then walked out directly. At this moment, Quinn, who was standing at the door, finally breathed a sigh of relief when he saw Chen Xavier walk out safely. Then, he glanced at the ugly faces of the three people in the private room, and his heart became uneasy again. Obviously, the chat just now was not pleasant for the few people. Fortunately, nothing serious happened, otherwise he would have a hard time dealing with both sides. Why are you stopping me? That guy is arrogant and obviously doesn't take us seriously. If we don't teach him a lesson, will he really think we are just clowns? General Lewis was so angry that he slapped the table. The powerful force directly broke the whole sandalwood round table into pieces, and the food and wine were spilled all over the floor. If it was his previous temper, he would have chopped the other party. General, if it was an ordinary person, you would have hit him. But Chen Xavier is not only a direct descendant of the Chen family, but also a guest of the little prince. If something happened here today, do you think the little prince would let us go? General of the city guard said indifferently. Yes, General, you can talk and make a scene, but you can't use physical force. There's no need to offend the young prince just for a moment of anger. It's not worth it. The Grand Secretary of Sky Seal Pavilion also echoed. It's okay to threaten and scare people, but if Chen Xavier is really hurt, there will be a lot of trouble. Even though they are not afraid of the Chen family, they have to give face to the young prince. You can't scold him, and you can't hit him. Are we going to let him go like this? General Lewis was still very unhappy. If what happened today gets out, how can he save face in the future? General, please be patient. The general of the city guard said calmly. We are inviting people to dinner openly. If something happens here, the young prince will definitely hold us accountable. Of course, if something happens somewhere else, that's another matter. Hearing this, General Lewis was slightly startled, and then quickly reacted. You mean, we can act secretly? Pick a few experts, capture him and torture him, and then make him disappear from the world. The general of the city guard made a gesture of wiping his neck and lowered his voice. As long as it is done cleanly and neatly, and no one catches it, even if the young prince has doubts, there is no reason to make trouble for us. Makes sense? General Lewis's eyes lit up. It's not the first time he has done such a thing as killing people to silence them. If it was a local wealthy family in West LUCOZIA, he might be cautious and not go too far. However, Chen Xavier is from Stonia. Even if he has some power background, he can't make any big waves in West LUCOZIA. With their power, there is no need to worry about the revenge of the Chen family. As for the little prince, it's enough to save face. I believe that the other party will not make a big fuss for a dead person. You too, this is not a trivial matter. How about considering it? The Grand Secretary of Sky Seal Pavilion seemed a little hesitant. It's just to inquire about the news. If someone dies because of this, it's somewhat inappropriate. Grand Secretary, you also saw what the guy's attitude was just now. How can a foreigner dare to be arrogant in front of us? If we don't kill the chicken to scare the monkey this time, won't everyone have the courage to shit and piss on our heads in the future? General Lewis said coldly. I just think it hasn't come to this point yet. The Grand Secretary of Sky Seal Pavilion shook his head. If you are afraid, you don't have to do anything. Let me handle it all. General Lewis said coldly. But I'll be frank. Today's incident is known to heaven, earth, you and me. If it is leaked out, don't blame me for turning my back on you. General, you are worrying too much. Just pretend I haven't been here today. I don't know anything. The Grand Secretary of Sky Seal Pavilion smiled awkwardly. He is about to retire, and just wants to enjoy his old age. He doesn't want to cause any big trouble. Some things can be avoided, and it's okay to be angry occasionally. This is his experience as an official for many years. Huh! People are getting older and their courage is getting smaller and smaller. General Lewis glanced at him, quite dissatisfied, but didn't say anything else. To deal with Chen Xavier, it is enough just to have the cooperation of him and the general of the city guards, and there is no need for the power of Sky Seal Pavilion. At this moment, in a moving jeep, Chen Xavier sat in the back seat with his eyes closed, while Quinn beside him was a little uneasy. Old friend, I don't think things are going well. You should leave West LUCOZIA as soon as possible, and it's best to leave now. After hesitating for a moment, Quinn still spoke. I have made an appointment with the little prince to return to Stonia together tomorrow. If I leave now, wouldn't it be a breach of trust? Chen Xavier slowly opened his eyes. Oh! What time is it? Of course, life is the most important. Quinn frowned and said, General Lewis has a violent temper and is ruthless. You have humiliated him in public today. He will definitely not let it go. If you don't leave now, I'm afraid you won't be able to leave tomorrow. Do you mean that he will kill to silence people? Chen Xavier raised his eyebrows slightly. Based on my understanding of him, it is very likely. Quinn looked serious. I am a guest of the little prince's banquet. If they kill me, how can they explain to the little prince? Chen Xavier said lightly. As long as they do it cleanly and don't get caught, the young prince can't do anything to them. After all, they are the backbone of West LUCOZIA, and the young prince will never tear his face with them directly for the Chen family. Quinn's tone was solemn. After this, Chen Xavier suddenly fell silent. Yes, he and the young prince have just met for the first time today. Even if they got along well, the other party would not punish the great General Lewis for a dead person. Besides, he didn't need to gamble with his life. There was no benefit in winning, but if he lose this bet, he would lost his life. Old friend, listen to my advice. The water in West LUCOZIA is very deep. You can't control it. Leave quickly. Seeing Chen Xavier silent, Quinn couldn't help but get anxious. After all, they are like brothers before, and he naturally didn't want the other party to die on the street. You are right. I'm not afraid of them using force, but I'm afraid of them using tricks. After hesitating for a moment, Chen Xavier finally nodded. Quinn, take me back to the hotel directly, and I'll go pack up immediately. That's right. Quinn breathed a sigh of relief. As the saying goes, if you keep the Green Mountain, you won't worry about having no firewood. One's life more important than anything else. Good brother, thank you. I'll treat you to a drink when I have a chance in the future. Chen Xavier smiled. If it weren't for the person in front of him persuading him in every possible way, he would really be in danger. If something goes wrong, it will be too late to regret. After returning to the hotel, Chen Xavier did not stay for long. After simply packing up his luggage, he got on Quinn's car and headed straight for the airport. Without the burden in their hearts, the two talked and laughed on the way. However, just as the car passed a fork in the road, a large truck that ran a red light suddenly rushed over. The driver could not react in time and could only subconsciously turn the steering wheel sharply. Because the steering was too fast, the Jeep turned sideways directly, rolled on the road for several times, broke through the guardrail, and fell into the roadside ditch. The driver in the car fainted on the spot, and Chen Xavier and Quinn were also knocked unconscious. Fortunately, they were physically strong and there was no big problem. Bang! Quinn kicked open the deformed door and got out of the overturned car. Fuck! Quinn was about to curse when he saw three people suddenly jump off the truck. All three of them were wearing black clothes and masks. Under the dim street lights, the three figures were very long, revealing a mysterious and dangerous atmosphere. At this time, Chen Xavier also got out of the car and frowned at the three black-clad men coming towards him. He felt a little uneasy. Old friend, we seem to be targeted. Quinn's face was a little ugly. Obviously, this was not an ordinary car accident, but a deliberate one. Yes, judging from their appearance, they should be here with bad intentions. Chen Xavier took off his coat, revealing his strong figure. He asked himself if he was fast and cautious enough, but he didn't expect to be intercepted by someone. It seems that Quinn was right. The unexpected event tonight has not ended yet, and General Lewis obviously has no intention of letting him go. Old friend, we are not far from the airport. I will hold you for a while. You go first. Quinn drew out the short knife from his waist and stared at the three assassins in black with vigilance. What nonsense are you talking about? No matter how bad I am, Chen Xavier will not abandon my brothers and run for my life. Chen Xavier moved his neck and said with a sharp look. Besides, we are not vegetarians. If we really fight, we may not be afraid of them. Okay. We two brothers haven't fought side by side for many years. Let's take this opportunity today and fight hard. Quinn didn't say much and took a fighting stance. At the critical moment of life and death, if the two can't be of one mind, they will both die here. He is not naive to think that the assassins arranged by General Lewis will let him go easily. Clang! 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 When they were close to the range of 10 meters, the three assassins in black drew their knives at the same time. Damn it! Fight with them! Xavier and Quinn looked at each other and killed them head on. As the saying goes, the bravest will win when they meet on the road. In a life and death fight, what matters most is the momentum. A momentum of fearlessness and courage. After a short sprint, the five people quickly collided with each other. Quinn was strong and powerful. He swung the saber in his hand with great force and made a fierce attack. As for Xavier, he was proficient in the art of fist and foot capture. He was agile and fast, and often took the initiative. Of course, the three black-clothed killers were not ordinary people. They were all close to the existence of half-step masters. In terms of hard power, the three black-clothed killers were slightly better. However, Xavier and Quinn cooperated well, and they dared to fight with no fear, so they did not fall behind for a while. After a short fight, both sides suffered injuries. Quinn was stabbed 3 times, bleeding, and Xavier was also cut between his chest and abdomen. However, the two men's adrenaline surged, and they didn't care about the wounds at all. Instead, they fought more and more bravely. On the other hand, the three black-clad killers were also embarrassed by the two men's fearless fighting style. They really didn't expect that the two people who were obviously weaker would be so brave. This was completely inconsistent with the information given by the employer. Kill, kill, kill! A bunch of dogs! I'm going to chop you into pieces! Quinn's face was ferocious, and he chopped wildly. He was full of murderous aura, like a hell beast, which made people tremble with fear. As for Xavier, he seemed unusually calm, cooperating with Quinn to wait for an opportunity, and occasionally giving the killers a heavy blow. Seeing that the situation was not good, the three black-clad killers also used all their skills. A bloody battle of life for life broke out. The shouts and sounds of weapons colliding were heard in the shadow of the street lamps. 5 figures intertwined and fought each other, and blood splattered everywhere. The surroundings were in a mess. After fighting for nearly an instant's stick of time, the noise gradually subsided, and the 5 figures fell into a pool of blood one after another. In the dim light of the street lamp, 3 black-clad killers could be seen dead. One had his neck broken, one had his chest pierced, and another was seriously injured and bled to death. On the other hand, Chen Xavier and Quinn were not in much better condition. Quinn was covered in blood and various wounds, and half of them were so deep that bones could be seen. As for Chen Xavier, he was also seriously injured, with knife wounds on his abdomen and shoulders, and his right arm was cut off, looking extremely serious. Cough, cough, cough. After getting rid of the last killer, Quinn collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath and spitting blood. His chest and abdomen had been cut open, his internal organs had flowed out, his face was pale, and he was breathing weakly. It was obvious that he was no longer able to survive. He had just been relying on his strong willpower to support himself, which was equivalent to a last gasp of life. Once the enemy fell, his momentum was lost, and his vitality would quickly fade away. Old friend! Old friend! Chen Xavier covered his wound, staggered to his feet, and moved step by step to Quinn's side. Looking at his comrade lying on the ground, spitting blood, Chen Xavier felt as if his heart was cut by a knife. He quickly took out the pill and fed it to Quinn's mouth, while tearing his clothes to stop the bleeding and bandage it. However, Quinn's injury was so serious that the pill was useless, and the simple bandage could not stop the bleeding at all. Old friend! Hold on! I'll take you to the hospital right away! Chen Xavier panicked and tried to pick up Quinn. However, with one arm broken, he couldn't keep his balance at all and failed several times. Old friend, listen to me. Quinn pressed his bloody palm on Xavier's arm and said weakly, I can't hold it anymore. While there is still a chance, you should leave quickly. I hope you can help me take care of my wife and children in the future. No. You will be fine. We have come out of the mountains of corpses and seas of blood. How can we fall here? Hold on. I'll take you away right away. Xavier carried Quinn on his back with difficulty, and then limped towards the truck. Wherever he passed, there was blood all over the ground. Although Xavier tried hard, Quinn still couldn't hold on. His head drooped weakly to one side, and the whole person was completely out of breath. Old friend! Old friend! Wake up! Xavier noticed something unusual and began to shout loudly at Quinn behind him. However, Quinn did not react at all, and was quiet, as if he was asleep. Xavier paused, his eyes reddened. Quinn could have had a happy life, but because of his involvement, he suffered an unexpected disaster and died. At this moment, his heart was filled with sadness and self-blame. If he had not entrusted Quinn to do things, if he had not had conflicts with those wolves, perhaps everything in front of him would not have happened. Woo-woo dash! Just as Xavier was sad, several black business cars suddenly rushed over, then braked suddenly and blocked the middle of the road. As the car door opened, more than a dozen killers in black clothes and masks rushed out, and soon surrounded Xavier. One of the leading assassins glanced at the corpse of his companion in front of him, frowned slightly, and said coldly, You are indeed quite powerful to kill my 3 brothers, but unfortunately you still can't escape. Are you sent by General Louis L? Xavier gritted his teeth. A dying person doesn't need to know so much. The assassin leader gestured. Take him down! As soon as this was said, all the assassins rushed forward. I'll fight you! Xavier roared, waving his one arm and rushing into the crowd, starting the final counterattack. At this moment, Xavier was completely determined to die. Although his body was broken, his combat power was not reduced at all. Even because of anger, his attack became more crazy. If the arms are not enough, then bite with teeth, use headbutt, and use the last bit of strength to injure the enemy as much as possible. Catch him alive! The assassin leader reminded. More than a dozen assassins were afraid to push too hard, so they could only use the method of maneuvering and pulling to constantly consume Xavier's physical strength. After a while, Xavier was exhausted and sweating, and his injuries became more serious. If he continued to fight like this, he would be exhausted without the enemy's attack. Seeing that he had no strength to resist, Xavier's eyes flashed with determination. Want to capture me alive? In your dream! Even if I die, I will never let you succeed! Xavier suddenly shouted, then raised his hand and slapped his head. With no escape, he chose to commit suicide. Bang! A muffled sound. Xavier's body trembled, blood flowed from his 7 orifices, and the whole person collapsed to the ground in an instant. No breath left, Xavier died. After his physical strength was exhausted, he chose to end his life in the most dignified way. This scene shocked these killers who have been licking blood on the edge of the knife for many years. Suicide is not something that ordinary people can do. Even ants still try to survive, let alone people. This guy is really cruel. The killer leader frowned. His face was a little ugly. The general wanted a living person, and now that the person is dead, he really can't explain. If he had known this earlier, he would have taken action himself just now and crippled him first. Boss, what should we do now? Asked the killer. You clean up the scene, I'll take the body back first. After leaving a word, the assassin leader grabbed Xavier's body and got on the car and left. At this moment, in a luxurious private house, General Louis and the city guard general were drinking tea and chatting, waiting for the result. General, it's been so long, why is there no news about your people? Didn't they fail? The city guard general said calmly. Impossible! General Louis rejected it outright. The assassins I raised are all elites among elites, and there are martial arts masters among them. It's easy to deal with 2 minions. This group of elite assassins is his trump card. He never uses them easily, but once he sends them out to perform tasks, they are 100% successful and there is no precedent of failure. If you say so, then I'm relieved. The city guard general breathed a sigh of relief. If Chen Xavier's escapes, it will be a trouble. You don't have to worry about my people. Chen Xavier will definitely be caught. The question is, can you completely erase the traces? General Lewis asked back. General, the law enforcement team are all my confidants. I have already informed them that what happened tonight will never be leaked. When the sun rises, Chen Xavier will disappear from the world, and no one can find any clues. The general of the city guard smiled confidently. That's good. General Lewis nodded with satisfaction. Leave the torture to me, and the finishing touches to you. We each do our own job, then I wish us a happy cooperation. The general of the city guard raised the teacup and drank it all. Just as the two were chatting, there was a knock on the door. Come in. General Lewis responded. Soon, the door was pushed open. The previous assassin leader walked in first, followed by two subordinates. The two carried a stretcher one after the other. On the stretcher was a corpse covered with a white cloth. How is it? Did you catch the person? General Lewis said calmly. Reporting to the general, the target committed suicide and we only brought back a corpse. The assassin leader was concise. What? Dead? Hearing this, General Lewis jumped up from his seat and said angrily. What are you guys doing? Didn't I specifically tell you to leave someone alive? How did you bring me a corpse? I didn't do my job well. Please punish me, General. The assassin leader immediately knelt on the ground and took the initiative to ask for punishment. Useless thing, I'll kill you! General Lewis drew his sword and was about to chop, but the city guard general raised his hand to stop him. General, please be patient. No one thought that Chen Xavier would choose to commit suicide. Now that the matter is done, it is useless to blame the subordinates. Let's think about how to deal with it. Humph! General Lewis sheathed his sword and shouted with a frosty face. You can be spared from the death penalty, but you can't escape the living crime. Go down and receive 80 military sticks. Thank you, General. The leader of the killers immediately knelt on the ground and saluted. Although being beaten with 80 military sticks will keep you out of bed for half a month, it is better than losing your head. Wait! The leader of the killers was about to leave, but was stopped by General Lewis. I ask you, is there anyone alive at the scene? Have the traces been cleaned up? Reply to the general, there are no survivors. Our people are cleaning up. The leader of the killers bowed his head. Remember! Make sure to clean it up, don't leave any traces, or you will be beheaded. General Lewis shouted. Yes! The assassin leader responded and turned away. The body on the stretcher lay quietly in the living room. General Lewis walked forward, lifted the white cloth and saw a slightly hideous face. Bleeding from all 7 orifices, full of murderous aura, and dying with eyes wide open. Boy! Weren't you very arrogant before? Why are you silent now? Dare to go against me, this is your fate. General Lewis grinned, then suddenly drew his sword and cut off Chen Xavier's head. Then he kicked it away like a football. The general soldier of the city guard behind him frowned slightly, but soon returned to normal. Chen Xavier's suicide disrupted all their plans. Now not only did they fail to force out any useful information, but they also got into trouble. But since it has been done, there is no turning back. As long as they clean up the beginning and the end, he believes there won't be any trouble. The next morning, in the West LUCOZIA Palace, after breakfast, Thorian Reese was about to contact Chen Xavier, but found that the other party's phone was not connected at all. After trying several times, no one answered. Thorian was a little puzzled. The two had agreed yesterday to go to Stonia together today, so why couldn't he contact him suddenly? Did he stand him up? But thinking about it carefully, it's unlikely. The two had a good chat and started to call each other brothers. If they travel together, they can take care of each other on the way. Besides, even if Chen Xavier really had something urgent to leave West LUCOZIA, he would definitely say something in advance. He wouldn't disappear. Could something have happened? Thorian Reese suddenly felt uneasy, and hurriedly called his confidant, and ordered, Go and check immediately to see where Chen Xavier is. Once there is news, report immediately. Yes. The confidant responded and left quickly. Thorian poured himself a cup of tea and waited quietly. About an hour later, the confidant returned again. How is it? Is there any news? Thorian immediately stood up and asked. During the waiting period, he also called many times, but there was no response. Reply to the young prince, I went to the hotel where Chen Xavier stayed, and the waiter claimed that he had left last night. The confidant replied, Left last night? Thorian raised his eyebrows. Did he return to Stonia in advance? I checked the entry and exit records last night. Although Chen Xavier booked a flight ticket, he did not board the plane. He should not have left West LUCOZIA yet. The confidant explained. He booked a flight but didn't leave. Did something really happen? Thorian frowned, feeling more and more uneasy. Chen Xavier was a distinguished guest that his elder brother personally instructed him to treat well. If anything happened to him, how would he explain to his elder brother? Any other news? Thorian asked hurriedly. According to my investigation, Chen Xavier left with Quinn last night. For this reason, I even went to Quinn's house. Like Chen Xavier, he also disappeared. The confidant said briefly. Investigate. Thorian's eyes suddenly became sharp. Investigate carefully. Even if you turn the whole royal city upside down, you must find the person for me. I obey, the confidant responded and turned to leave. If it was just looking for someone before, now it is a citywide search. The West LUCOZIA Palace has a dedicated law enforcement team, which is above all other institutions. Once the law enforcement team is dispatched, all official personnel in West LUCOZIA must put down their work and cooperate with them. The most important thing is that the palace law enforcement team has the right to kill first and report later. No matter if you are a senior official or a powerful person, as long as you hinder the law enforcement team from doing things, you can be killed on the spot. If you resist, you will be beheaded at the least, and your entire family will be exterminated at the worst. There was once a first-rank senior official who relied on his outstanding merits, disregarded the law, and indulged his descendants to do evil. When the palace law enforcement team arrived to arrest people, they even called in private troops to resist. The final result was that all the direct lineage members, including the high officials, were beheaded. Such a large family, more than 300 people, were wiped out overnight. From then on, the royal palace law enforcement team became the nightmare of all officials. So when the law enforcement team was dispatched, the officials of the entire West LUCOZIA royal city became nervous, fearing that they would get into trouble. At this moment, in the general's mansion, General Lewis was in the martial arts field, conducting actual combat training with his personal guards. He was shirtless, revealing his strong muscles, and he wielded a spear with great skill. Even if he was fighting 10 people alone, he still had the upper hand. Although these guards were elites selected from thousands of people, they could only retreat step by step under the powerful offensive of General Lewis. In a short while, more than 10 people were knocked to the ground. A bunch of good-for-nothings. General Lewis pointed his spear at the noses of the guards and cursed. I told you to train more and improve your strength, but you insisted on being lazy. Now you are all like weaklings, and you can't even resist my 3 moves. If I relied on you to protect me, I would have died long ago. General, it's not that we can't do it, it's that you are too powerful. Looking at the whole West LUCOZIA, there are not many people who can survive 3 moves under your hands. The head of the personal guards covered his dislocated arm and said bitterly. Although he looked very aggrieved, this flattery made General Lewis very happy. Humph! I don't want to bother with you this time. If you are still like this next time, don't blame me for the military stick. As General Lewis spoke, he threw the long gun in his hand and accurately threw it into the weapon rack. The head of the personal guards didn't care about his dislocated arm, and quickly picked up a dry towel and handed it to General Lewis. General Lewis wiped his sweat and threw it back. The head of the personal guards immediately picked up his coat and put it on General Lewis. A set of operations was smooth and flowing, giving full play to his value. General! General! At this time, the city guards suddenly broke into the martial arts arena, looking very anxious. 2 guards tried to block the way, but were pushed away and fell to the ground. The head of the guards saw this and was about to step forward to stop them, but was stopped by General Lewis. General, why are you so flustered? This is not like your style. General Lewis sat down leisurely and signaled his guards to pour tea. General! I just received news that the young prince has dispatched the palace law enforcement team and is now searching the city for Chen Xavier. We are afraid that we are in trouble this time. The general of the city guards looked solemn. He thought that the young prince would not make a big fuss because of Xavier, but he did not expect that Xavier was missing for only one night, and the young prince directly dispatched the palace law enforcement team. You know, the last time the law enforcement team was fully dispatched was 3 years ago, when the Liu family was wiped out. More than 300 people in the Liu family were all killed, and no one survived. Hearing this, even General Lewis couldn't help but frown. The Royal Palace Law Enforcement Team never goes out easily, but once it is called, it is basically a world-shaking event. The question is a small direct descendant of the Chen family qualified to be so important to the young prince? General, are you sure that the Royal Palace Law Enforcement Team is really dispatched? And it's because of Xavier? General Lewis asked back. Of course it's true, the city guard general said with a serious face. Just now, the order has been issued that the captain of the Royal Palace Law Enforcement Team will temporarily take over my position as the general. Now the city defense affairs, including public security investigations, are all under the full control of the law enforcement team. Strange, why would the young prince make such a big fuss for such a small role? General Lewis was a little surprised and doubtful. According to his investigation, the two sides met for the first time. Even if there was any collusion of interests before, it would not be to the extent of sending out the law enforcement team. It seems that he still underestimated the weight of Xavier in the eyes of the young prince. General, it seems that the young prince is serious this time. What countermeasures do you have? The general of the city guard asked tentatively. Now the power in his hands has been fully transferred, and he cannot mobilize a single soldier in a short period of time. This made him a little nervous. No need for any countermeasures, just treat this incident as if it never happened. Anyway, we have erased all traces. Even the law enforcement team can't find us. General Lewis said lightly. He had expected such a situation. The assassins sent out were all nameless and identityless people, and no information could be found at all. In addition, all the traces last night have been repeatedly cleaned up several times, and there is no flaw at all. Xavier's body has also been cremated and burned clean, which is equivalent to death without evidence. Even if the young prince had some suspicions, even if the law enforcement team came to investigate, they would not dare to do anything to him without evidence. So after a brief surprise, he quickly regained his composure. General, that's what you said, but there is no wall that is impenetrable. You should be very clear about the methods of the law enforcement team. If they really find out any clues, it will be a trouble after all. The general of the city guard frowned. What can they find out? Unless there is a problem on your side, there will be no loopholes. At this point, General Lewis suddenly glanced sideways. Let me ask again, are your confidants reliable? My confidants are of course no problem. They follow me through life and death and will never leak any information. What I am worried about now is whether the assassins you sent out are reliable, said the general of the city guard. Don't worry, I have sent them out of West LUCOZIA overnight. Even if the law enforcement team has the ability to reach the sky, they can't find out abroad. General Lewis said lightly. That's good, that's good. The city guard general breathed a sigh of relief. But just in case, we still need to communicate in advance, just in case the law enforcement team comes to investigate, so as not to expose our flaws. General, aren't you too cautious? We have done our job perfectly, and this time the law enforcement team's investigation will only end in failure. There is no need to be nervous. General Lewis joked. Better safe than sorry. The city guard general smiled. When he heard that the palace law enforcement team was dispatched, he was already a little nervous. Especially when the law enforcement team temporarily took over the city defense affairs, he became even more uneasy. That's why he rushed over to communicate with General Lewis. Now that they have known each other, he finally feels much more at ease. In the afternoon, in the West LUCOZIA Palace, Thorian sat in the meeting room with a gloomy face, and standing next to him was the captain of the palace law enforcement team, William. Young Prince, according to the detailed investigation of our law enforcement team, since Xavier came to West LUCOZIA, he has only come into contact with 3 people. I suspect that Xavier's disappearance is related to them. William reported. Which 3 people? Thorian's face was as dark as water. Now he has basically confirmed that Chin Xavier is really in trouble. These three people are the General Soldier of the City Guard, General Lewis, and the Grand Secretary of Sky Seal Pavilion, William said. It turned out to be the three of them? Thorian frowned. A group of people surrounded the gate of the palace yesterday. If I remember correctly, the three of them were among them. According to the investigation, the three of them specially held a banquet to invite Chin Xavier last night. It seemed that there was something unpleasant during the period. Not long after that, Chin Xavier disappeared strangely without any trace. William said again. From this point of view, Chin Xavier's disappearance is inseparable from these three people? Thorian's face was a little ugly. It was like pulling teeth out of a pig's mouth to do these shady means under his nose. Time is tight, and no definite evidence has been found for the time being, but these three people are the most suspicious. William said. Humph! These guys are so bold that they dare to touch even my guests. They simply don't take me seriously. Thorian slammed the table and shouted. Catch the three of them immediately. I want to interrogate them one by one. Yes. William responded and turned to leave.
And just can't accept it. This can't be the end yet. You promised to never leave. And now you're gone. Can't believe. I can feel the world slipping away as you slowly fade from my everyday. You promised forever a love without end, but now I'm left broken, struggling to mend. I thought we were so tight, destined for a lifetime, love with no end, love with no end. Staying in my imagination, memorizing the past time, the secrets, the love, the care, now they're echoes in the air. I still see your face in every place, feel your warmth, your gentle grace, but now there's just an empty space, and I'm lost in this endless chase. Keeping you in my heart, a piece of you I'll never